to the farmer's barn, you are to turn to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right again until you come about to the old mill.
Oh, come on, man. We could as soon find out the longitude.
What's to be done, Marlowe?
Let me see. You could stay here for the night. It is one of the best inns in the whole country. And so the plot is set in motion for She Stoops to Conquer by the 18th century English author Oliver Goldsmith. I'm Alan Sherbin, Anthony Lumpkin, Esquire in the play, but you can call me Tony. Oliver Goldsmith was born in Ireland in 1728. The family was poor, but Oliver did manage to go to college and medical school. However, he never really spent much time as a doctor. In fact, he never spent much time doing anything. He was restless and drifted between jobs and cities, living most of his life in deep poverty. He always had grandiose plans, but was never able to accomplish them. It didn't help that he was addicted to alcohol, or that he was extravagant whenever he had the money. He tried his hand at writing with more than 40 publications in 15 years. Poems, essays, a half-dozen books, plus 2 plays and 1 novel. It's said that Goldsmith was one of the finest natural writers in the English language. His versatility was remarkable, with 4 or 5 outstanding and popular works: long poems, satirical essays, a novel, and stage plays. It was his style of writing that was so influential. She Stoops to Conquer, said to have changed the direction of English theater, was written in 1772, 2 years before Goldsmith died at age 45.
Then, to be plain with you, Kate, I expect the young man I have chosen to be your husband from town this very evening. I have his father's letter, in which he informs me his son is set out and that he himself will follow shortly thereafter.
Oh, indeed! But it's 1,000 to 1. I shan't like him.
Depend upon it, child, I shall never control your choice. But young Mr. Marlowe, whom I pitched upon, is the son of Sir Charles Marlowe, my old friend, of whom you have heard me talk so often. I am told he's a man of excellent understanding.
Is he?
Very generous.
I'm sure I shall like him.
Young and brave.
I believe I shall like him.
And very handsome.
Oh, dear Papa, say no more. He's mine. I'll have him.
I think Goldsmith used the whole idea of love to let us know what love is all about and to get the different views of love. We have Tony, who hasn't thought about love, and love is almost sprung on him, and his reaction is negative and he shuns it. Whereas we have the opposite in Hastings, who just embraces the idea of love and is just overcome when he sees Miss Neville. And then we see the other side of love, the practical side, between the fathers who are trying to do what's best for their children. We also see that communicated through Brian Silver, who played Marlowe, just the idea of thinking behind love. Okay, I'm not just going to be pushed into this, but I'm going to make the choice of love. And then the mother, who has that also romantic feeling of love between Tony and Miss Neville. So it's just really interesting to see how Goldsmith used these subplots of love to show us ourselves how we view love and to give us different options of how we can view it.
So, She Stoops to Conquer is about love. But as we all know, true love doesn't follow an easy course.
Well, there's my pretty darling Kate. Blessings on my pretty innocence, but what a quantity of superfluous silk thou hast got about thee this evening, girl.
You know our agreement, sir. You allow me the morning to receive and pay visits and dress in my own manner. And in the evening, I put on my housewife's dress to please you.
Probably by 18th century standards, we're probably a very dysfunctional family. But it's not like an unhappy family. We all love each other. Well, Mr. Hardcastle, he's trying to marry his daughter to the son of his best friend.
My character was Kate Hardcastle, and the story was basically how she got young Marlowe to fall in love with her. At first, she was very much against the idea of marrying someone or considering marrying someone who is so shy and reserved as her father described him. To me, I think after that point she took it on as a challenge because she knew he was coming. And after she met him the first time, he was stuttering all over the place. She realized that she could have some fun with this and see if he would actually fall in love with her.
It comes up in about 3 different scenes that I'm not able to speak to ladies of high stature and of upper class. And so when I finally do meet Kate Hardcastle, I'm stuttering and you know, kind of bumbling over myself.
But the title, She Stoops to Conquer, Kate stoops from her position of high class to pretending she's in a lower class in order to conquer him and to gain his love.
And just in case you get bored with that plot, Goldsmith added another love story with George Hastings and Constance Neville, wrapped up everything with some eccentric parents, and threw in one of the great comic characters of the stage, Tony Lumpkin, son, brother, cousin, and all-around impish rogue. She Stoops to Conquer is full of contrasts: youth and age, country and city, old-fashioned and modern, desire and duty, appearance and reality. The story depends on the rigid class structure of the day, something Goldsmith knew firsthand. Most are timeless themes, but that doesn't mean that presenting a 200-year-old play to a modern audience is an easy thing.
A lot of productions like to do, let's say, Shakespeare. They like to modernize it and put it in today. But we were trying to take a play that was done in the 18th century, that was written about that time, and keep it there in the 18th century.
I basically decided that it had to be in that time period, mainly because a lot of the comedy in the storyline is because of the different social classes. And if you were to put that in a modern time, you would lose a lot of it because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
We did change some lines to make them a little bit more accessible to the audience. She Stoops to Conquer was written roughly 100 years later than Shakespeare was writing, so the language was a little bit more common to us. But there were several things that we cut out, that we made more clear, so that just for our general overall purpose, that the audience would understand, enjoy the plot, and laugh at the funny parts.
For instance, Tony calls a stepfather father-in-law. I told the cast, I said, okay, we're going to change that to stepfather. Mrs. Hardcastle calls Miss Neville Mrs. Niece. And at first I almost thought it was a typo or something, but when you look at script notes, that's something about the time back then, that's what they called them. So we just scribbled out the misses and, you know, my niece here thinks. One of the things that Tony said, I'll get you a pair of horses that fly like Whistlejacket. And so one of the rehearsals, when Tony said that, I was like, oh, by the way, that's what Whistlejacket means. We can change it to, you know, run like the wind. He was like, no, I like Whistlejacket. I think that's cool. So a lot of the words could be figured out in context. You may not have understood the exact word definition, but you knew what they were talking about.
Humor doesn't change too much over the years. People are the same. People don't really change. We might change the way we look or the way we dress, but the things that are funny to us are still funny, no matter when.
This is a copy of She Stoops to Conquer, published around 1900. It's a full-length play with a number of characters, locations, scenes, even a prologue added for a disgruntled stage diva unhappy with her role. Careful cutting of the script can reduce the complexity, making it easier to perform and clearer for the audience. So Goldsmith's multiple servants are combined into a single character, Diggory. Long speeches are shortened to pick up the pace, eliminate unnecessary words, make the plot and jokes evident. Sadly, but realistically, many things in literature need to be sanitized by changing or removing objectionable themes, words, or actions.
We actually changed pretty much the whole storyline in a sense. The plot was still there, but originally Marlowe was comfortable around women of ill reputation. So he's uncomfortable around the high-class women, but the ones that are, you know, you'd find in the bar, the barmaids, women of lower reputation, he's very comfortable around them and he likes those. He also mistakes Kate as the barmaid and not just the maid. But obviously that's something that we couldn't use in the play.
But we all have the responsibility to be discerning Christians and to take whatever we see and filter it through the Word of God, and then to take from it the positive aspects and to turn around and reject the negative aspects.
Well, we have our cutting of She Stoops to Conquer. It's now an hour long, simpler to stage and easier to understand. Act 1, a chamber in an old-fashioned house. We need a director.
When I started the play, I had an idea of what I wanted it to look like. The director has to have a vision to reach the final product.
The mannerisms of the greetings, the males, what we would characterize as more feminine today, but in that society was considered very masculine. The idea of lace on the costumes, very fluid with their movements. They weren't strong in stance, but they were very Danified. And the women were that way too, and they were very concerned about their appearance. We wanted to actually get big wigs, and I think we did get some rather interesting wigs with the feathers there.
The girls had gigantic dresses on, and that was something to get used to. We practiced with the costumes several times just so they could get a feeling for that, because it's something totally different from what we're used to today.
Also, the carriage, we all worked a lot on how to walk properly, how to bow, greet people, that sort of thing, except for Tony. That no one cared what Tony acted like because he was anything but refined.
It is very hard when you're on stage to see and to tell what it looks like from the audience. And so a lot of times the actors just have to trust the director. When the director says, no, that doesn't work, you need to do it this way, they need to just have faith in the director and knowing that the director can see it differently and that it has to be good from the audience's point of view and not from the actors.
The director does a lot. You don't see them on stage. They don't get like a lot of the glory of being on stage. They are a big part of the production. Like without her, there is no play.
Our version of She Stoops to Conquer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters. Let's meet them.
Well, Mr. Hardcastle, he's the man of the house. He's sort of, it's a rather minor role in terms of actual lines, but he's sort of the spoke around which a lot of the wheel of the play turns a lot of the time. He's a really interesting character because at times he's the most eccentric character on stage, and at other times the most level-headed guy on stage.
Mrs. Hardcastle, it was a little bit difficult to play her because she is an older woman who is uptight about everything, it seems like, and wants to control everything but can't. And when she can't, she goes kind of crazy. And I want everyone to get married and everything to work out my way, but it doesn't, and everyone else is going against me. So I would think that I was one of the major antagonists for the play.
I enjoyed Tony Lumpkin. I think guys in college can really identify with him a lot as a character because Tony is a character who sees the world in a different light. He wants to have fun a lot, and in order to get fun and to have fun, he manipulates his mother. But it doesn't really seem like the stepfather has a shadow pulled over his eyes. It seems like he really knows what's going on and understands Tony even from the beginning, where he says that this boisterous young lad, and he goes on to describe him as this filthy young man, where everybody else seems to think he's funny. Even the audience is drawn into this character and they love him and they really can identify with him, but the stepfather doesn't approve of him at all.
Wait a minute. I play the Tony Lumpkin character. Let me quote from the script. The son, a pretty, well-bred, agreeable youth that everybody is fond of. How unlike my cousin, Constance Neville, a ward of my parents who just happens to have an inherited fortune in jewels. Let me quote from the script again. I know every inch about her, and there's not a more bitter, cantankerous toad in all Christendom. See?
Tony got like all the attention. I kind of wish that Miss Neville would have been a little crazier and would have been able to run around, but in those dresses, there's no way.
Kate Hardcastle is my daughter by Mrs. Hardcastle. She would have been a daddy's girl. I would spoil her to every extent, but that doesn't necessarily mean I approve like all of the fashions, the styles that a growing up girl would probably be interested in.
She doesn't think much beyond the outward appearance at first. And it's that scene in her dress where she's more concerned about being in the latest fashion and looking pretty. As far as the maid's dress, it's an obedience to my father that I have to wear it, and also seen in her choice of what a good man is considered to be, someone that's handsome, as compared to the fact that she could be just so concerned that he is witty, that he's smart, that he's wise, that he can earn money, that he could take care of a family, but she's not.
Marlowe is very shy around upper-class women. He comes to obviously visit a Kate Hardcastle, who is an upper-class young lady who my father wants me to meet. It was almost kind of like I looked down on my own character, you know, because he was rejecting this young lady just because he didn't want to disappoint whoever it may be that cared about him, whether it be his father, whether it be his political standings, whatever it be, that he was so concerned about that he wasn't willing to make a decision for true love.
At first, I really wanted to bring out the more comedic aspects of Hastings. As time went on, I realized that he was more of the upstanding, typical, you know, in a good way, typical 18th century man. The comedic value was going to come when my character, kind of stiff, kind of formal, rubbed up against Tony. And a lot of what goes on in She Stoops to Conquer is not what Hastings would consider proper and normal.
Sir Charles Marlowe, who is the lead character's father, and Mr. Hardcastle, who is the lead female character's father, are very good friends, and they want their kids to get married. He's a Sir Charles, the only one referred to as a Sir. So he attempted to be very refined, and yet went a little bit overboard in that attempt.
These are all the... Wait, we can't forget about Diggory, the ever-helpful, ever-patient servant.
He takes his job seriously. He wants to do his very best to serve his master very well. He can be a little simple because he doesn't understand everything. That's one of the reasons why he just joins in with the plot.
I don't know that I had one favorite character. I think I liked them all, and I liked how each actor brought something specific to that character.
During our table reading, you know, very flat, very monotone, and yet at the end of the production, I think that all the cast did a really great job of connecting with their characters, realizing who they were, and then communicating that to the audience, internalizing the lines.
But it was a discovery as you memorized your lines, and even like sometimes you memorize them and you don't really know why you're saying that line until you look at other characters.
Once we got going, it's not the script, it's the little things. It's the little touches that the actors and actresses add that turn a script from being decent to being great, a great performance.
And it is a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. And it really pays off when the audience gets to see the fruits of your work and they start laughing. And that's when it's all worth it.
I knew the cast had worked hard and that they were ready. I just had confidence in them.
But you can never be 100% sure until opening night.
Oh, I was like, oh no, there's people here.
I was getting so nervous, thinking I know I'm going to have a memory block, and I'm going to forget my lines, and I'm going to trip over that carpet, and I just had all these things in my head that could be going on, and I just committed that to the Lord in prayer, and then as soon as I got out there, it was so much fun.
Backstage, we were watching, you know, what was going on while you weren't on stage. And it was funny. We would stay there and we would just, and you had to be quiet because you're backstage, but we would just be dying in laughter, realizing this is why the audience thinks it's so funny.
It was good at the end of the play to hear the applause and to realize that they enjoyed it. And then afterwards to see, you know, friends and family come up.
Judging from the audience reaction, I think we hit most of it on target.
There you have it. A wild and crazy plot, memorable characters, snappy dialogue, a little bit of romance, slapstick, intrigue, all wrapped up into a quantity of superfluous silk.
You see now, young man, the effects of your folly?
I have hit it. Meet me 2 hours hence at the bottom of the garden, and if you don't find Tony Lumpkin a more well-natured fellow than you thought for, then I'll give you leave to take my best horse And Bet Bouncer is part of the bargain. Come along then. Ho!
She stoops to conquer. I had to stoop to become a maid. And she had to stoop in her own opinion of herself, in a way, to get him to like her.
I think it's because it was such a good piece of literature, it was easy to enjoy. And the actors themselves and the things that they did made it enjoyable and something fun to watch.
And all of the cast members I absolutely enjoyed acting with.
What an opportunity I had to be in the play and to meet all these people. I was just so happy that it went well and that people liked it.
But it was such a joy just to see everybody there, especially the last performance, seeing everybody up there and to be able to have a small part in that.
We worked together and we all had a good time and we made a really good play.
Just the satisfaction of knowing that the audience liked the play, you know, I did a decent job. It was worth it. Okay, phew, it's done.